Teaching English Radio India.
A radio series for teachers of English.
Brought to you by the British Council. Welcome to another program in our series for teachers of English in India. I'm Bibash Dash, and let's find out about our topic for today. We've talked a lot about grammar, reading, speaking, and even listening. So, you've guessed it, today our focus is writing. Introducing writing activities. And to help discuss this topic, we hear from teachers from around the country. Here are just a few of them.
I'm Mahesh from Mumbai.
I'm Geeta from Trivandrum.
I'm Priya from Mumbai.
I'm Monica, I am from Delhi.
Writing is an important skill to develop at school and beyond.
When they grow up and when they, after school, when they go to college, they will have to give their exams in English because most of the colleges in India are English medium colleges.
You need to put writing into practice. You need to apply it to so many other things. Like writing an email maybe. When you know how to write, when you know how to use the language, it makes a difference. You have to use the right words in the right way to get your message across.
When they get into the work situation, again they'll need to write emails, formal letters, and so on and so forth. So it is a very important skill that needs to be developed in the children.
The curriculum and exams require students to do a variety of types of writing. So the teacher should focus on them during English lessons. Let's first hear from Geeta.
Yeah, in schools, in primary as well as secondary, the teachers need to inculcate the habit of writing in the children, especially letter writing, both formal and informal writing, and essay writing, question and answers, those kind of things.
Setting up any writing task needs planning because teachers need to provide lots of support. If you want your students to confidently write sentences, then some examples on the board will be needed, as well as guidelines for punctuation and linking words. One step-by-step method is to ask students to copy out some examples from the board which contain a few blanks where words are missing. Or give them the beginnings of sentences. They must decide how to complete them. After checking, the students can then create a few new sentences using their own words. Monica is preparing a lesson for her group of 4th standard students.
I'm going to do prepositions today because it's very necessary for all students to locate the things around them, and through this they can make small sentences and they can easily convey their message to their friends and others.
The first part of the lesson involved a lively game using prepositions like on, under, above, and behind. This is over now, and Monica is moving to a stage which includes writing sentences.
Now students, we will do another activity. So first you will make pairs. Make a sentence with the prepositions. Which things? Like the fan, the table, computer. Okay, make a sentence with the prepositions. How much time would you like?
5 minutes.
Okay, start. I will give you 5 minutes.
Around the room, students are working in pairs. They look around and then write down sentences using prepositions about what they can see.
You have 1 minute left.
There is a strict time limit. Then the teacher invites them to read out their answers.
Students, your time has finished. So shall we start? Okay. Everyone will tell us one sentence.
The bag is under the table.
Is it correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And second, next.
The computer is behind my chair.
Is she correct?
Yes,
ma'am. The box is under the table.
The computer on the table.
Is she correct?
No, ma'am. The computers are on the table.
The fan is over my head. Is she correct? Yes, ma'am.
This is a very basic writing activity. It reinforces what they have been practicing, and it also builds up confidence at producing correct sentences. Notice how the teacher asks students to decide amongst themselves if their sentences are correct or not. This way, they are encouraged to help each other. Mahesh says that students need regular writing practice in our lessons.
Writing also checks the students' knowledge, what they have understood from the lesson, and later on how they can put it into their own words. So writing is an important part of learning a language.
Geeta gives us some examples of the basic features of writing that your students will need help with.
It's a very difficult task on the teacher's part to ensure that the students write proper sentences, and there has to be proper punctuation, correct spellings, use of correct spellings. Teachers need to ensure that the students segregate the topic into different paragraphs, and there has to be a flow. So there are a whole lot of issues that the teacher needs to look into.
Using the textbook or writing on the board, Geeta makes sure that her students are shown models to help them write their own sentences. These models give students correct sentences and paragraphs to copy and to use as examples. And over time, they will build up to writing paragraphs and letter writing and even creative writing.
You are listening to Teaching English Radio, India, brought to you by the British Council.
Our topic today explores ways that teachers of English can introduce writing activities. Students who have moved on from constructing simple sentences are often asked to write a paragraph or more about a particular topic. It is easiest to start with students' own experiences, but we want to include a range of topics. How can we introduce them in a way that gives students a reason to write? Let's first hear from Geeta.
For a teacher, it's not an easy task because she cannot just come to the class and say, I want all of you to write a paragraph on environmental pollution. It doesn't happen like that. So the teacher has to set the context first and create some interest, and then brainstorm ideas from the children.
Brainstorming involves asking students a question that will make them think. For example, what are the different types of pollution? The whole class can then call out ideas, or they can first talk together in pairs or small groups. It's a great technique to generate creative ideas.
Probably they can work in pairs first, and then they can form smaller groups. They can put their thoughts together, write it down, and then the teacher can take a feedback from the whole class, put down those points on the board, and then give a structure to the whole thing.
The next stage is for students to use the ideas generated to write their own paragraphs. The teacher helps to guide this, again using the board.
There has to be an introduction first, then the main points in 1 or 2 paragraphs, and then there has to be a conclusion. So this can be elicited from the learners and put up on the board, and so that there is a structure to the paragraph writing, and then she can ask them to write their own paragraphs. If they can correct their peers' errors also, that would be fantastic.
The aim is to first get their ideas and then to help them work out a structure, an introduction, the main body, and then a conclusion. With notes on the board and key vocabulary, a difficult writing task gets broken down into stages that students will understand. Another idea for providing a context for writing comes from Priya. In this case, she wants her students to write a letter complaining about garbage.
If I walk into my class and I tell my class, write a letter about the garbage problem in your area, there might be no problem at all in a particular student's area. So he'll be wondering, what do I write? So instead of that, I set up a context saying that this morning when I woke up, I saw lots of garbage in front of my house. It was stinking. My children couldn't breathe. and they couldn't walk to school. So can you imagine a situation outside your house or in your lane, in the place that you live, and get them to visualize it actually?
Now that everyone can see it's a real problem, Priya asks what action they would take.
Would they just live with it? Would they complain to somebody? And how would they do that? Would they just pick up the phone and speak? If they don't have the number, then what do they do? So then you come down to writing a letter. So then you ask them, whom will you write it to? It's very important to bring to their notice that it's a formal letter. There is a striking difference between a formal and an informal letter, which they need to know. So you cannot say, hi, how are you doing?
At this point, Priya, with encouragement from her students, writes up some set phrases used in formal letters. Dear Sir, I am writing to complain about, yours faithfully, and so on. And students can copy and learn those fixed phrases which will be useful for future letter writing.
And then after they've brainstormed ideas about the structure, about the salutation, the body of the letter and the conclusion, you set the structure and then ask them to write a letter and get it corrected by their peers.
The writing task can be shared, which allows students to help each other to make sure the letters are correct. A good point about Priya's approach is that she gave her students a reason for writing, to complain about the garbage problem. She also gave them an audience, someone who would read their letters, the local authorities. And this meant they began to think about the most appropriate language to use, in this case, formal and persuasive. Letters, simple messages to other students, invites, emails, these are all forms of written communication where we can make students think about the format, the style, the reason for writing, and the audience. Teachers often want students to write paragraphs using their imagination. How can students be encouraged to do this? We'll hear a couple of ideas, but I'm sure you'll have many more of your own. Here's Mahesh with an old umbrella.
Say, for example, the essays that they need to write. There are those autobiographical essays where they can really imagine things and think up stories and be very creative. The teacher can, for example, walk into the class with a very old, worn-looking umbrella and show it to the students and get them to talk about it and lead them to the topic of the essay, which can be the autobiography of an old umbrella.
Mahesh explains that with gestures and acting on the part of the teacher, it's possible to get the students to relate to that old umbrella and imagine what its life has been like. This would be the basis for a piece of writing which tells that umbrella's story. What objects could you suggest? Another rich source of ideas is animals and nature, particularly with young people. And from there, you can move to biographies of famous people. There are many ways to introduce a theme and get students talking and sharing ideas ahead of a writing task. One very motivating thing that teachers can do is to put examples of students writing up on a wall in the classroom. And another is not to correct everything in red ink. In fact, correcting written work is our topic for next time. So let me summarize the main points in today's program. Writing is an important part of the learning process as well as a skill that students may need for their future studies and employment. We should build up our students' confidence by moving step by step from simple sentences to paragraphs and to other formats such as letters. Help with examples with model sentences or beginnings of sentences. Brainstorm and share ideas and put them on the board before you write. Create a context and a reason for writing as well as an audience. We'll talk more about writing again next time and look at different ways of improving by self-correction and peer correction and help from the teacher. But for now, it's goodbye from me, Bibhash Dash, and happy teaching.